it's a fact that a lot of people end up in the same jobs that their parents have. And I think it's a lot to do with things like conversations over the dinner table, or becoming familiar with the language of that job, and I guess kids wanting to pursue what they know, and if what they know is their parents' occupations, they're a lot more likely to end up following a similar path. But this makes some occupations feel really sort of exclusive to people that are on the outside, people that aren't familiar with the language of how that job works and how you get into it. I think it's kind of a problem for things like academic areas, where if your parents are professors, maybe you'll find it easier to become one too. I'm not sure. My parents certainly didn't have any scientific background, and neither of them went on to university, but here I am doing a PhD in physics, so I'm certainly not really following in the footsteps of my parents, and I think there's maybe two sides to it. I think some aspects of being the first in your family to go to university are a little bit hard. Things like just not knowing how the system works. Like when I got to university, I had never even heard of a PhD. I had no idea how the progression from one degree to another worked. I had no idea about how you sort of get a job in academia. I had no idea about even what you're supposed to do once you get to uni. I've just sort of learnt that as I've gone. I also certainly didn't know any science until quite late in my life. I was probably quite a late starter. I didn't really know anything about science until high school, definitely, and until quite late high school. I didn't have, as a kid, any of those sort of science toys that I see now. I see people giving their children these toys that teach them coding or maths at a really early age, and I just look at that and I think, wow, that's crazy. Like, those exist, and I can't imagine what it would have been like to be exposed to more scientific ideas at a young age, and to even be exposed to the idea of being a scientist as a child. That would have been really different for me, and I don't know how it would have changed the outlook I have now, because I think there's actually benefits for being the first in your family to do something. For example, I've never felt any pressure to take a certain path. I would hate to feel pressured into taking like medicine or law or some certain subject that traditionally students feel a lot of pressure from their parents to go into. I would sort of hate that. I feel very lucky to just be able to pursue what I like. It's got the challenge of me having to convince my parents though of what I'm doing, because they don't really have any idea of the path I'm taking, so I have to sort of explain it to them and explain maybe why I think it's useful, but that can be hard. Like, sometimes if I call my mum during like when I've been a student and I'll tell her that it's really hard and that it's stressful, she'll just say, oh, why don't you drop out already? Are you going to quit physics yet? Have you had enough of it? And I just say, no, I'm gonna stick in for a bit longer, see how it goes. But I don't really have that person that's been through it telling me, you know, it'll get better, it'll be this, it'll be that. So I've just got to figure that out as I go. I think through this my parents have really just learned to trust me, to trust that I'm doing something that I enjoy, and they're fine with that, so they've been supportive, and that's great. One big benefit maybe that comes from being sort of the first in my family to be at uni is that I feel like I'm able to think more outside of the box, because I have no idea what the box is. So like, for example, I've always done a lot of sort of extra side projects or extracurricular activities while studying, because I enjoy doing other things, and I never really had any idea that I shouldn't be doing something else. So whether it's making videos or doing other science communication, or going into like business startup competitions or anything else, I feel like maybe I wouldn't have done so many extra things if I was trying to follow in somebody else's footsteps, if I wasn't just walking my own path, so to say. When I hear of people whose parents are both professors and they're on track to be one themselves, I think, wow, that must be such a different way of life to the one I've experienced. But I don't think there is any real good or bad about being on either side of this. I think you still need to form your own path regardless of what your parents have done, and if they're an inspiration for you, then that's great. And if you want to do something totally different from them, I think I'd encourage that as well.